Hello, everyone. Today, I'll repurpose an old phone charger to build a simple antenna. First, I remove the outer cover of the charger so I can reuse the housing as the main frame of the antenna. Next, I remove the circuit board inside because those components are no longer needed for the new design. Then, I remove the two metal plug prongs from the charger to get rid of the parts that are no longer necessary. In the next step, I drill a hole in the side of the charger. This hole will provide a path for the wires, making it easier to route and organize them neatly inside the housing. Next, I drill a hole in the front of the charger. This opening will be used to install one of the antenna components while also helping keep the parts properly positioned and securely fixed during assembly. Next, I prepare two small electrical wires to use as the internal wiring of the charger housing. First, I strip the insulation from the ends of the wires to expose the copper conductors, preparing them for the connection. Then, I feed the two wires through the small openings near the charger's plug section, leaving a short section of exposed copper for easier connection. Next, I reinstall the metal plug prongs into their original positions. The exposed copper will make contact with the metal prongs, creating a secure connection with the internal wires. I repeat the same process with the second wire. In the next step, I'll repurpose an old phone SIM card as the central connection component inside the charger housing. First, I use a utility knife to lightly scrape the surface of the circuit board at the connection point. This helps clean the surface and allows the solder to adhere more easily, making the next soldering step more convenient. Next, I create 4 solder joints at the 4 corners of the SIM circuit board to prepare for the upcoming connections. Once the solder joints are complete, I attach the SIM card to its holder to increase its size and provide a larger contact area for the connection assembly. Next, I use a wooden clip to hold the SIM card firmly in place, preventing it from moving during soldering. Then, I solder the wire from the charger to one of the solder joints on the surface of the SIM card. Next, I prepare 2 additional small wires and solder them to the 2 remaining solder joints on the SIM card. These wires provide additional connection paths, helping complete the wiring system and distribute the contact points across the antenna's central connection component. Next, I twist the brown wire together with a short piece of copper wire to create a connection point. This video is for DIY and educational purposes only. TV signal reception depends on your location, local broadcast conditions, equipment compatibility, and installation quality. Always use tools safely and check your setup responsibly. Then, I solder the connection to hold the 2 pieces firmly together, making the joint stronger and more stable for the next assembly steps. Next, I use a copper cable shaft to create a connector for the remaining wire. First, I place the copper shaft on a wooden clip to hold it securely, then solder a connection point onto the shaft for the wire. Next, I solder the remaining wire to the copper shaft and make sure the joint is firmly secured. Then, I attach the end of the copper wire to the small hole in the copper shaft to complete the connection. Next, I place all of the wires inside the charger housing. I carefully adjust the position so that the copper shaft fits neatly into the hole on the side of the charger that I drilled earlier. This keeps the connector stable and gives the assembly a cleaner structure. In the next step, I'll use an L-shaped metal bracket as the support for the antenna. I use a bolt and a nut to secure the charger housing to the L-shaped bracket, keeping the antenna frame firmly in place during use. Next, I use a wooden board as the base for the antenna. I place the bracket in the center of the board, then use a marker to mark the positions of the two holes in the bracket onto the wood. After marking the positions, I will drill 2 holes in the wooden board at the marked locations to prepare for the next mounting step. Next, I use screws to secure the L-shaped bracket to the wooden base, making the support structure more stable and secure during use. In the next step, I apply soldering flux to the ends of the charger's metal plug prongs. The flux helps the solder adhere more easily to the metal surface, creating a stronger and cleaner solder joint. First, I solder a connection point onto the end of each plug prong, creating contact points for the antenna elements. Next, I prepare 2 copper coils to serve as the receiving elements of the antenna. Then, I solder each copper coil securely to one of the charger's metal plug prongs. The 2 copper coils will act as the antenna's receiving elements, completing the antenna assembly while keeping the overall design compact and organized. Next, I'll use a length of signal cable to connect the antenna to the TV. First, I strip the insulation from the end of the cable to expose the inner conductor. This prepares the cable for the connector and helps provide a more stable signal connection. Then, I attach the cable to an F5 connector. Next, I wrap electrical tape around the joint to secure the connection and protect the contact point from becoming loose or accidentally shorting during use. I repeat the same process on the other end of the cable to create another connection point. Then, I attach the other end to a TV antenna connector. This connector allows the signal cable to connect directly to the antenna input on the TV, making installation and removal more convenient. At this point, both ends of the signal cable are complete. Next, I'll connect the signal cable to the copper cable shaft on the antenna assembly to complete the signal path. Finally, I put the cover of the charger housing back on and secure it firmly to protect the components inside. At this point, the homemade antenna is complete and ready to be connected to the TV for a signal reception test. First, I'll switch to a TV channel to check the signal reception without connecting the antenna. As you can see, without the antenna connected, the TV only displays the message, "No signal." Next, I'll connect the DIY antenna to the signal input on the back of the TV for the actual test. And here is the result. Almost immediately after connecting the antenna, the TV channels begin to appear. The picture is clear, the colors remain stable, and there are no continuous signal interruptions. To make the test more convincing, I'll perform one more experiment. I disconnect the antenna from the TV and observe the signal changes. As soon as the antenna is unplugged, the screen instantly returns to the no signal message. All channels disappear, confirming that the signal truly came from this homemade antenna. Now, I'll reconnect the antenna once again. As you can see, within just a few seconds, the channels reappear and continue working normally. This proves that many electronic parts that seem to have only one purpose can be reused in completely different and surprisingly useful ways. Not only does this save money, but it also opens the door to many more exciting DIY ideas. If you enjoyed this project or found it helpful, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support motivates me to continue creating more repair, recycling, and DIY projects in the future. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.